If it's important to you, it's important to me. The moment that you live that way and she believes it and she can feel it, she's not going anywhere.
Welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. This is the podcast for dads of all seasons to learn the things that they can do and engage so that they can go and equip the next generation for success. Here we sit down with everyday dads just like you to learn from their story, get inspired, and then start getting after it. So we invite you to join in, see what you can take away from this story, and apply to your life on your journey to becoming the Skilled Dad. Hey guys, welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. My name's Zach Reeser. I'm your host, and if this is your first time joining us, we want to say welcome. And for those in the Skilled Dad Society, the crew that keeps coming back, we want to say welcome back. Every time we get a new episode, I get to hear about other stories that people are taking away from something they heard from someone else in a podcast. And that's fun. That's just fun to see what you all are taking, what you're learning, and then what you're applying to make some difference in your life, which ultimately has a ripple effect into the lives of your family, your kids, and your friends, believe it or not, and your friends. And a lot of that's because you're taking the action. You're actually making movement from what you learned. And so I want to continue to challenge you on that, encourage you to keep taking that action. That's where you're going to see changes. And in the connections in your relationships, it takes work and it takes intentionality. It takes the drive to go and do something about it. And then it's really interesting to see what happens after that. And actually, I want to talk more about that very topic of connecting with our loved ones, connecting with our kids, connecting with our friends, with my guest today. And that's Mr. Randy Pryor. Randy, welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast.
Thank you so much, Zach. Looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun, especially now that we're actually talking. So we just spent about 10, 15 minutes working on our lip syncing capabilities because one could hear us, the other couldn't. But you looked really good the whole time. So,
I work on that,
that's good. That's good. Doing the push-ups. But Randy, this is another good example of when I get to have a pre-call, if you will, and I have an opportunity to meet with the person I'm going to jump on here with when we hit the record button. And they're always aimed to be about 15 minutes, but oftentimes they go well beyond. And that was, no exception when it came to the conversation Randy and I had. And I got to learn a lot about him, about what he's doing. And he's doing some really big things. And I was taking notes during that call, just like I do on these episodes, because I was like, oh my gosh, that's a good idea. Well, I need to go and deploy that one and give it a shot. So Randy's a lot of fun too, and just really funny. And that goes to some of his history, which I'm going to lend to him shortly. But he's also an author and wrote, kind of true to the topic that we started with, the SOS Reconnect book. And this is a really good one to go grab, check out. And we'll talk more about why here in a little bit. But I was really excited, especially after we talked. I was like, there's some really good takeaways, especially for any of you that are listening that might be in a place. And I know there are some of you that might be in a place where marriage is on the rocks, or you might even be in the midst of a separation, perhaps in the proceedings of divorce. I don't wish that upon anybody. I understand that. From different perspective. But there's a lot that's in here that might be able to help you. And for those of you that doesn't apply to, there's plenty in here that's going to be able to help you. So that we can maybe get some things ahead of time if we find ourselves in, a low point at some point. So Randy, I would love to just turn it over to you, kind of intro yourself in the things that I missed. And then also, we'll get into more about kind of where this came from, SOS Reconnect, as well as what you're doing now, but what you're doing helping men specifically. So again, happy to have you on here. Looking forward to it. And I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Zach. Yeah, I'll give you a little my background. I had a 40-year career in entertainment. I was a professional comedy magician and juggler, believe it or not, for a very, very long time. And that was so much fun. I had my own show on cruise ships and making lots of people laugh, and that was great. And so at one point, my wife and I said, hey, you know what? We got to get off ships because we want to start a family. Okay, we don't want to do it on the open ocean. So we got off the ships and I started working on land, and I had three main places where I was performing, pretty, local places, as well as doing flying around the country and doing corporate gigs and things. And it was great. And it was working pretty well. And then two of the three of them within like 60 days closed. So now I've
Hmm.
only got one left to perform it. I'm going, oh, okay, this is, so I had to, it's our job to make the money and bring home the bacon. So I dove in and worked really, really hard. Well, we had just had our second child. And I was thinking, okay, now I really have to work hard because I've got two kids now, not just my wife and I. And it turns out that I became a workaholic, and I became a bit of a control freak, and I became a little selfish, and I didn't even realize it. Right. So after 14 years of marriage, my wife finally said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I don't
Hmm.
love you anymore. I want a divorce. And it threw me for a loop. I mean, I was out of my mind in pain. I had no control of this. There was nothing I could do. So I went across the street to my church, and they had a support group for separated guys. And so I dove in and I learned all kinds of great stuff. And I worked really hard for about 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, they asked me to become a leader and help other guys get through it like I had. And that was now 15 years ago. And I'm still there.
Hmm.
So I've learned all kinds of great stuff. And it's not just for separated guys, it's to help the guys who are, let's say, married, and maybe there's always going to be some trouble. Um, there's a way to get through this. There's some things that we should be doing that the world never really teaches us how to do. Right. And
Right.
I would love to pass those things on to the guys. So as it turns out, just full transparency up front, I waited too long to reach out for help. My wife had already asked for divorce. She was done after 14 years. Okay. So she and I became really good friends afterwards, but we did actually end up being divorced. And the reason I want to mention that up front is, one, I do want to be honest and upfront and transparent. But more importantly than that is, I want to kind of help guys not make the same mistakes that I made. Don't wait till it's too late. In fact, the number one comment that I hear from all of my clients is, yeah, I knew it was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad.
Hmm.
And that is like so common. We hear that all the time. So, but now, I mean, honestly, after I went through it, I learned what to do. I learned all kinds of stuff. Now my life is full of joy and peace and contentment, significance. That's because I put the work in. So that's kind
Hmm.
of my background.
Yeah. It's funny when we talked, I think that that last part didn't really come out towards the until the end of the conversation, which is a lot of the things that you hear from your guys is I didn't realize I knew it wasn't going well, but I didn't realize it was going that bad. And so we kind of reversed, the sequence of that conversation and start with that. And I think that's a good way to set the table with this whole conversation is for everyone regardless of what stage that you're in, because whether you're on one end of the spectrum where it's already gotten to a tough spot, it may not come backwards. To the other end of it, where we might find ourselves in a place where we could be doing things now to make sure that we don't get into a place where we didn't realize it was that bad. And that could be
Right.
missing cues, whatever it might be. So um, I want to learn, more about what you've found and what you've discovered in the conversations and in how you've been helping guys throughout this time that we could, you know, take away and take some notes because that's what it's
Sure.
about is learning some things we can go and do. So let's dive into
Yep.
that for a minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I wrote a book about 4 years ago just because a bunch of guys said, hey, nobody teaches this stuff. So you should write a book. And I thought, oh, okay, I've been doing this for quite some time and I can tell you what works and what doesn't. So I wrote a book and it's been getting some rave reviews and all that kind of stuff. It's called SOS Reconnect. And the reason for that is there's three main parts to it, right? SOS. The first S is stop pushing her away. And what happens during a separation, or when it gets really bad and there's a lot of arguing, um, we revert to what's been working for us, right? We are men, and God gave us certain things, right? He gave us the logic and the need to fix things. It's in our DNA, right?
Mhm.
That's how we operate. That's what works for us everywhere else, right? I mean, as a quick example, you don't get paid in your job to be patient. You get paid to get it done, right? To make it happen,
True.
whatever it is, figure it out, make it done, get the results, and we'll pay you. And if you don't get the results, we're just going to pay somebody else and we're going to let you go because that's not how, right, jobs work. Okay. So we think it's a two-step process because of how we're built. We think, okay, something's broken, let's fix it. That just makes logical sense to us. But that's because we're thinking like men. Something's broken, let's fix this. That's what works everywhere else. For women, that's not what she's thinking. For her, it's not a two-step process. Something's broken, let's fix it. For her, it's 3 steps. Something's broken, let's reconnect. And if we reconnect, then we can work on it or fix it or even talk about it. But that it's that second section, that reconnection process that we skip right over it because we're, logical beings. Broken, let's
Mhm.
work on it. She doesn't want to work on it. She doesn't want to go backwards. Okay. If you're separated, I know I'm going to, talk to a small chunk of your audience here, but if you are separated, she's thinking these 2 things. She's thinking, I can't stand the way it is. And I can't imagine that it can ever be better permanently. And that doesn't mean that it can't get better. It just means that right now she can't imagine it because of her personal experience with you, right? If you've been married for 10 years, she has 10 years experience with you. She knows that you'll say or do whatever you need to in order to change her mind. And then she'll come back and things will be great for a while. And then they will eventually slide right back into how they used to be. That's actually her biggest fear. So again, I'm really sorry. And I know this sounds harsh, but if you're separated right now, your wife is not coming back to you. And I know that sounds harsh, but she's not. She may go forward with you in a whole new relationship, but she's not going backwards. Once she reaches a place where she thinks that separation is the best thing to do, that means that she is no longer going to accept the past, how she's been feeling, whether you've been treating her poorly or whether whatever reason, right? She doesn't feel loved.
Mm.
And most separations occur when a wife doesn't feel in charge of their own life. That's the bottom line of it. She says, nope, not going to happen. I've been doing this for however long you've been married and it's not working for me. So we have to separate. And it's an epidemic. I mean, it's all over the place. You don't want it to get that far. You want to say, okay, what can I do? Right. And the reality is what does work. And here's the good news. There is a way through this. Here's the hard news. There's only one way through this. There's not a bunch of techniques and strategies. That's all manipulation. Like, the what do they call that? The no contact technique. Just leave her alone, ignore her, and she'll miss you and come back.
If
Sorry,
you
I
let it
just have
go,
to
it'll
laugh at
come
that.
back kind of thing.
Right,
If you-
right. That's the
Got it.
cat string theory, right? Just let it go and maybe dangle this. It's so much, a bunch of crap. I'm sorry, it doesn't work. It's a mind game. It's a manipulation, and it just doesn't work that way. So when you keep talking to her about, well, let's work on it. Let's go to therapy. Let's go to counseling. I'm going to read a book. Okay. All that is words, blah, blah, blah. All that does is push her away. That's all it does because she's heard it before.
Mm.
This isn't your first rodeo. You guys have had arguments before and somehow you know, talked her into staying or whatever. And things were great. And then they eventually get right back to how they used to be. That happened to me. It happened to all my clients. It happens across the world. It happens to everybody. So the first thing you want to do, the first S, is stop pushing her away, meaning stop trying to convince her to do this your way. And instead, you want to focus on learning new behaviors that can become habits. And you can actually show her that you're serious about improvement. improving yourself. Change your goal. If your goal is to win your wife back, change your goal. Change your goal to, I want to become the best version of me that I can become. That's in your control. Making her happy is not in your control.
Mhm.
Makes sense?
It does. It does. And my wheels are always spinning in these conversations, but you had mentioned something along the lines of, kind of speaking to the niche audience. I guess it's two questions. Part one, the most recent stats that I looked at, I think it's still at 50% roughly divorce rate.
Mhm.
Um, I know that there was a peak, or it had been higher and then it started to drop a little bit. Um, and I see, I have to check my facts on this, but ultimately we're still hovering around that 50% rate. So there's a 50% chance that someone is in, potential zone here that this is relevant. But the other thing that came to mind when you said it, maybe the second part is not there, but so two things, stop pushing her away. And she's thinking, "I can't stand the way it is." And then the second part, um, being that, I've heard these things essentially, I don't want to have this repeat. So I don't trust that it's going to actually be different. It's just like a temporary fix. Um, I guess for someone that's maybe not in that boat, but like going back to what you said, I didn't realize it was this bad. How would you recommend, or in these conversations that you have with guys that you help, that someone gauge where they are? If you might
Yeah.
think that you're in a good spot, but then all of a sudden you're like,
Right.
that's different. Like, how does one even go about gauging that?
Yeah. I would highly recommend what we call a family business meeting about
Mm,
once a week. Anytime you pick, every Friday night, every Sunday afternoon, whenever you choose. Check in. Say, hey, can I ask you something? A couple of questions, and it doesn't have to be a 30-minute meeting. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Especially if you do it every week, it's going to end up being 5 minutes.
mm,
Okay. So a great question. What was the highlight of your week? What went really well? Okay. And she's going to tell whatever she's going to say. And then it's your turn to say, yeah, what really worked for me was X, Y, and Z. Okay. What was your low light of the week? What didn't work for you? And if she says, well, I could certainly use more help with the kid. Okay. She's not saying that just because it's fun to say. That's her reaching out for help, right? Okay. So you have a choice. You can say, okay, thank you. I received that loud and clear. I hear you, whatever language you want to use, right?
mm,
And then you can choose to either do something about it and stay married, or choose to ignore it, sweep it under the rug, or do what I did. Yeah, you know what? I appreciate that, but I'm working really hard right now to provide for the family, and I'll get to that as soon as I can.
mhm,
Meaning, no, plain and
right.
simple. Okay. So if you had that chat once a week, then you wouldn't have to pepper the entire week with little things. If she knew that she had a really nice open space where you guys are going to speak calmly, nicely to each other, right? You're going to be kind to each other, but yet you're going to be able to air it out and say, yeah, this didn't work for me. Remember when I asked you to walk the dog and you didn't? Well, the dog peed all over the floor and I had to clean it up. Okay, that doesn't work for me. Okay, then you
Mhm,
can say, you know what? You're right. Okay. Now that goes a long ways. If you're still married and you don't see that it's a big giant deal, okay. If it's working for you, keep doing it. The problem is most guys aren't getting the signals. We think, look, if it's important to you, let me know. They think if it's important to them, we should already know, right? How many times we hear that? We've been married forever. You should know that by now. Oh, yeah, that's our
right.
favorite question. You should already know.
Yeah, there seems to be a small giant, um, what's the word I'm looking for? We're on two different sides of an island there, and a giant pit down the middle, right? So it's like
Yeah.
they, and this is generalized, and I get that, guys, but uh, they think we should already know. We
Yep.
maybe haven't really fully picked up on it before, but we've never bridged the gap with what that is. So even the question in the hypothetical sense where, here's my good, would I would love that you start with the positive, and I recommend that for anybody. If you're gonna start, don't start with like, hey, what's the low part of your week? Because now we've just started the whole thing with a negative.
Right.
Start with a positive, and
Yeah.
then get the endorphins going about the good feeling. And then negative, but it's like I could use more help with the kids. Who hasn't had something that's popped up and said I could use more help with this or trash reference, may not be kids, whatever it is.
Whatever.
Speak for myself. I've had a few of them. Um,
Mhm.
but But I think that if you're not having these type of meetings, the only thing I'd maybe throw out as an encouragement is also like, if you don't know what that means, you're like, what do you mean help the kids? Ask. Like, hey, could you break that
Right.
down for me? What specifically are you thinking of? Because something's in their
Yeah.
mind. It's gonna come out.
Right. What does that look like to you? More
Right.
help with the kids. I appreciate that. Um, I got 1,000 things on my mind, and I want to hear this. I want to hear you. What you're saying to me is important to me. But can you break it down? Can you can you spell it out? What does that mean specifically?
Mhm.
Well, I could use some more of this and this and this and this. Great. Thank you so much. And it wouldn't hurt if you take notes. Wouldn't hurt at all. But by the way, don't use your phone to take notes. A little insider. When you have a phone and you're doing this, it doesn't matter that you're taking notes. It looks like you're playing on your phone. So don't take a little notepad with you or something. Get a writing stick. Back in the old days, we used to write things down. Okay. Get a little pad or something. Do whatever you need to do. But how great would it feel to her if she said, yeah, I really need help in the mornings, a lot more help in the mornings. And you said, hang on. Okay, great. Thank you. Now she feels heard. She
Mhm.
doesn't know you're just scribbling. Doesn't know that. Actually,
Yeah,
write the note.
just don't show the picture that you're drawing with. And
Right.
if you don't have
Right.
one, I'm going to give a plug for somebody that absolutely does not sponsor me, but it's a great thing. The Remarkable pad. This thing is,
Yep.
it's taken up all my paper, put it in one place, and it doesn't look like you're playing your phone, which it absolutely does. Even if you say so, like I used to have some of my sales team that we'd go see clients and they'd get on their phone and they'd start, taking notes. And I just watched the client disengage. And I'm like,
Yep.
do they know what you're doing on your phone? Like, do they know? Even when they knew, it's just like a thing. So it's a great tip. Um, the other thing that you had said that stuck out, and this might be the part, like if this is new to anybody and it feels like it would be awkward, I think it just probably will be, but just step into the awkward with that one because it's new and it's a thing.
Right.
But for our spouse to walk into what you said was kind of the safe place, so to speak. So
Mhm.
if your normal reaction is
Yeah.
one of defensiveness and hostility, um,
Mhm.
we can't show that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to have any business meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I'll even give you a couple of good phrases, some starters. Okay. Because this goes right into the next part. The O of the SOS Reconnect is open communication. Okay. O is
Mm,
for open communication. And we never, and you, half you guys already know this. You never want to say the phrase, we need to talk, right? Nobody wants to hear that. We're already on the defensive. What have I done wrong?
dun,
Right. It's like,
dun.
right. Yeah. You hear that in the background. Okay. Here's some other good phrases. Hey, can I run something by you? Hey, can I get your feedback on something? Can I get your opinion on something? Can you help me? Those are all what I call lean in. Somebody says, can I get your feedback on something? You go, yeah. What can I help? What can I do? Right? You want to help. You want to lean in. Okay. Can I run something by you? Is as about casual as I can make it. And it's inviting. It's just an invitation. Can I run something by you? Yeah. No, I'm not ready right now. I'm formulating this thought, but how about Sunday? Does Sunday, afternoon work for you? Okay. Yeah. What's up? Okay. Or anytime you want to have a discussion with her, it's not, we have to talk. It's an invitation to have a short discussion, right?
Yeah.
That's just, it's 1,000 times better than we need to talk. And when I'm talking to my separated guys, generally speaking, the wife doesn't want to talk. And the hardest part is to open up communication again, right? So it's not about trying to talk her into, we need to communicate better. Well, as soon as you say we, you're kind of insinuating that she's not good at communication or she needs to be involved in this, you're not taking full responsibility. When you say, can I talk to you? Can I run something by you? Okay, right. And we don't want to talk about it. We want to show her. We want to show her that we're serious about change and improvement. Right.
Mm.
And if you're separated, your wife has an opinion, right? Or even if you're not separated and you're just fighting all the time. Okay. You really want your wife to imagine that life with you could be better than it's ever been. And right now she can't imagine that because she's had all this time and things are rocky, right? So one of my phrases, I like to use phrases that remind me of the concepts. Here's one of my phrases. If you'd like your wife to look at you differently, give her something different to look at. It can't be more of the same. It can't be just let's talk about it again, and then I'll sweep it under the rug. And okay, you don't want to do that. You can't talk your way out of things that you've behaved yourself into. You can't talk your way out of things you behaved yourself into. Okay. So listen more, right? I agree 100% with Stephen Covey. He says that most people don't listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. And I did that for 14 years. Matter of fact, I could tell you when my wife started to describe an issue, my brain was already thinking of the fix, how to solve the problem while she's talking. A, stupid me. And two, I'm not actually paying full attention to her. I'm too busy trying to reply, right? So
Mm.
instead, put the phone down. In fact, put it away. Doesn't count if you put it on the table or even if you turn it upside down.
Yeah.
You're still indicating that the phone could ring any minute, and that's more important than she is. So put the phone away
Right.
and talk to her.
One of the things you said early on is that people pay us for results in jobs.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of the guys that listen to this have some really important roles in business, and many of them have people within their teams. And you mentioned family business meeting. This made me think of the fact that if you've been in a role for long enough, and maybe you've got promotions, maybe you've gotten raises, or you've just been in that role for a while, then you already have these skills. Because if you didn't have them pretty well at work, then things may not be, going upwards the way that you want. And it's always fascinating to me to see how oftentimes we have these, but when you put it in the context of home life, they've somehow somewhat maybe not fully evaporated, but we kind of forget all the training and how well we can do them. Um, so
Right.
that's more of an encouragement for you guys. If you find yourself in that seat and you're like, this is like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, well, you are doing it. You just need to switch the context a little bit.
Right. Raise the priority of your marriage. Raise the priority of your marriage. We take it for granted. When I say we, I mean me and all my clients and almost every guy. We think, oh, we're fine. We're okay. If you were to ask your wife on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we in our marriage? She would say, I don't know, let's say, for example, you think it's a 7 or an 8. She could very well say a 3 or a 4, and you wouldn't even know it.
Mm.
Now,
Mhm.
which one of us is right? Is it a 3 or 4, or is it a 7 or an 8? The real answer,
Mm.
it's a 3 or a 4.
Well, you're probably both right in the way you're looking at it, but
Right.
you know,
We think
that
it's an
that shows
average.
that shows the discourse
Right.
between the two and
Exactly.
the perspectives of it. Yeah. So it should be a
Right.
flag.
Right. And we think, well, if I think it's 7 or 8 and she thinks it's 3 or 4, it's got to be around, 5 or a 6. No, it's a 3 or 4 because she's the one that's going to pull the plug. She's the one that's been given the emotions and the nurturing and the intuition, all that great stuff. We don't have that. We have the logic and the need to fix things. So although it seems unfair, okay, well, that's the reality of it. She's female. I'm male. I want to fix it. She wants to do her thing. What she needs that we don't need, she needs to feel safe and secure all the time. We don't need that. We just need to feel adequate and we'll just keep working, right? You give me a thumbs up at a good meal and I'll just keep working. And she needs more than that. She needs to feel safe and secure. Providing financially is one piece of it. The world teaches us that that's everything. If you want to be a good husband, you need to become a good provider. And so that's what we do. We learn that really well. We can make our money and it's all good. But that's only a piece of it. Our real goal, what we are supposed to be doing, is providing an environment where she can feel safe and secure all the time. And we don't learn that. We learn to make the money and then that should be good enough. Our internal story is, well, I work my fingers to the bone. And if I work so hard, then my family should know that I love them. And that's
Right.
not enough. It's not. We got to be there. They don't want just our money. They want us. That's why they married us. They want us to be there physically and present to help with the kids and help with whatever's going on. Right. And a lot
Right.
of my guys have gone through that. In fact, I'll give you an example. One of my guys, his name's Randall. When Randall came to us, his wife had just asked him to move out. They were done. Not going to happen. She was just done. And he didn't want to move out. In fact, his buddies told him not to. They said, if you move out, it'll look like you're abandoning the family and she'll never let you back. So he said, well, what should I do? I told him, I said, look, you've got a golden opportunity here. You can demonstrate that you're going to put her first, or you can demonstrate that you're going to put you first. What do you want to do? And he said, well, I want to put her first. I said, okay, then you got to move out. So he moved out, joined my program. We just started working on him, 100% working on him. And they had some text exchanges. And after about 10 and a half weeks, maybe 11 weeks, he got a text from his wife. And all it said was, wow, I really like the changes and I miss you. Please come home. And he moved
Mm.
back home and they reconciled. And they're doing great. Matter of fact, he's now one of my support coaches. And that's the
Wow.
kind of stuff that happens because she got to see, not just hear about it, right? She got to see the improvements, got to see the changes.
Hmm.
Because if you're separated, I'm really sorry, but your word means nothing. Your good intentions, that time's passed.
Hmm.
Now you got to show her.
I think I shared this with you, but I've had the opportunity and pleasure to coach a lot little league teams, baseball and soccer. And the expectation would be that as they develop and grow in their U levels each year, that they're getting better, and at some point, they're grasping the concept of the sport, what to do next. Because as you grow and get older, it gets more competitive. And so if you want to stay in the competition, you've got to show the skill sets. And one of the things that had come up last season was some of the things that it's kind of like, hey, at this point, like we should know this, but we're kind of needing to grow here. It's like, yeah, I know, and then lots of words. And now this is something with my son and I. And so now we both have the phrase, and it goes both ways. Um, don't just tell me, show me. I don't want to hear what you're going to do. I don't want to hear about your plans. I want to see it in action. And I'm not trying to necessarily equate, U10 or 10U baseball with marriage, but the concept's the same. And some of you might be thinking of an example of whether it be coaching little league teams or work or marriage or whatever. It's like at some point you're tired of hearing about it. You want to see it before, in the work sense, before somebody gets on PIP, then you got to see that turned around. It goes right back to the scenario. We don't want to get on a PIP. If we're equating it to the work world and we're all providing the financial side of it, and we're proud of that, and we should be, as long as we're also taking into account our whole life holistically. But at this point, um, we're looking at a PIP if we don't get on board and start seeing that change. So that
Right.
story with what he did, I think that just reminded me of that concept. Is like, don't tell me, show me. And so we
Right.
can
Right.
show it's like work.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely. Yeah. And I've got some stuff for your guys. whether they're separated or not. There's a thing that I started about 14 years ago that really helps our guys reconnect and basically open communication without the pressure of trying to change their mind, let's say. And this started 14 years ago when my wife and I split up. My kids kind of gravitated towards my wife and away from me. And so she was more, being more of a friend. I was being more of a disciplinarian and all that kind of stuff. It didn't work at all. So I started doing something a while ago, and this is something that it works with anybody with a cell phone. This is kind of cool. It's called Reconnecting,
Mhm.
and it's about reconnecting using text, but it's not about texting the way that we're used to doing. Texting is usually a two-way street. It's really about engagement kind of a thing. And if your wife is upset with you, there's going to be a chance that she doesn't necessarily want to text with you. Okay. So we're going to use the texting as simply a delivery system, if you will. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say, and I'll give you the quick little background of how this started. My kids didn't want to talk to me at all. There was a point where they didn't want anything to do with me. And this was early on, and I was, texting them and talking to them. They were like, I don't know, 7 and 9. So by then, of course, they both have cell phones. So I would text them, I miss you. I love you. You should see your dad 50% of the time, blah, 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 blah. Nothing but pressure. And they were just going, yeah, I'm out. I don't want to, forget that. Well, one of the things that we used to do with daddy and kids was I would take them to Disneyland because I used to work there for 7 years. And that was like something we would have fun together. But that was, before the divorce and everything. Okay. So I thought, all right, instead of continually hounding them, I miss you. I love you. We should talk more. That's just pressure. So I went to Disneyland by myself. I went all the way as far as I could go to the very last area. It's called Critter Country. And I turned around and I noticed that there was no signs there that said Critter Country. So I took a picture with my phone and then I texted both of my kids with that photo. And all I said was, where am I? And that was it. Within 5 minutes, I got my text back and it said, you're in Critter Country. Come on, Dad, you can do better than that. And it was on. For the next 2 hours, I played a game with my kids, and all I did was take pictures of different areas of the park, and I made the clues harder and harder and harder. I got all the way down to like a little decoration on a wall, and they were nailing it. Okay. 2 hours of a fun game. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm onto something because I didn't put any pressure on them. So I came up with this and shared it with some people, and it worked like a charm. Okay. Reconnecting is very simple. It's got 3 rules to it. First of all, it has to be specific and personal to the receiver. Okay. Specific, instead of saying, well, she likes gardening. Okay. Let's say, if your wife, if I was going to send something to my wife and my wife, maybe we're having trouble or something. And I knew that she was into gardening. That's not quite specific enough. I would have to ask myself, okay, what about gardening? What's her favorite? Well, she likes, I don't know, roses. Okay, what's her favorite kind of rose? Blue roses. Okay. All right. So I hop on Google, not just the regular Google search engine, but Google News, right? There's a little tab up there, Google News. And I put in gardening blue roses. What comes up are all these articles. Me being a good husband, I look at the articles, 5 minutes. I'm not talking like a half an hour. I'm talking 5 minutes. And I find an article that I know she's going to love. And I grab the link and I text it to her. But all I say is, and this is very important, all I say is, check this out. That's all. I don't say, I know how much you like roses and I was coming, blah, blah, blah. And I thought you'd like this. No, stop. Just check this out. Link. That is all. So what's going to happen? Her phone's going to go ding. You look down, see her phone, your name's on it. If you're fighting, you don't want her to go, what does he want?
Hmm.
You want her to relax, right? Okay, so what's this? Now she sees it's just a link and check this out. How long do you think it would take her to click that link? Less
How
than
long?
1 second. Hey,
Hmm.
she's going to go, what's this? And now it's not this long dry. It's not an article about relationships and how she should work on herself. No, 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 no. She's going to go, that's pretty great. That's pretty thoughtful. Okay. Okay. We don't expect a reply. We don't need a thank you. It's a little gift. It's a little present. You don't need to say, I'm thinking of you. Because, I mean, logically, you can't send somebody a text unless you're thinking about them. And
Right.
this is better because there's no pressure. That's the second one, right? The first one is specific and personal. The second point is no pressure. Don't ask for a reply. Don't expect a reply. It's a little gift. You just give her something. Okay. Now, what can we send? An article, something that you know she'll like, a photo. This is always good, or almost always good, depending on your relationship. Go into your phone, go to your photos, go back as far as you can. Find a picture of just the kids or her and the kids, and you're not in it. It's just a picture of the kids, right? And you send it to her.
Mhm.
And all you say is, look what I found. Because I don't know any parents that don't want a picture of their kid, even
Mhm.
if it's already on their own phone,
Right.
right? It's like, oh, how cute this they were old. Okay. Or the when your dog was a puppy or something that, you know, if she says, why do you send this to me? That it has to be the truth, but it doesn't have to be long. You can say, I thought you'd like it, because that's the truth.
Mhm.
Articles, photos, memes, cartoons, a YouTube video, as long as it's not trying to be manipulative. Don't send her if you guys are fighting, don't send her necessarily a video of a music video of your song, right? We fell in love together on this song. Ah, send her an interview with, you know, with somebody that you know she'll appreciate. So there are
Mhm.
things you can do. And the last one is frequency. How often do we do this? Okay. If you guys are separated, if there's a lot of, you know, junk between you, you don't want to do it every day. That's a full court press, right? That's too much pressure. Do it once, wait a few days. If you don't hear back from her at all, that's okay. Give her some space. Do another one every 3 or 4 days. If she gives you a positive indicate, a thumbs up, a heart emoji, a thank you. Okay. Now you can pick up the frequency every other day or even every day if she's digging it, right? Depending
Mhm.
on your situation. But you don't want to force anything. And you absolutely want to drop the expectations, because this is not used as a technique to re-engage. It's basically a way to let her know that you're thinking of her without the pressure. And I've seen turnarounds. I've seen miracles happen. And you don't do the whole, can we talk? No, that now it's just a technique to try and get her to engage with you. And I'll leave that section with this. You want to do it with everyone you know, everyone with a cell phone. It
Mm.
works with your kids. If your kids have cell phones, figure out what they're into. My clients, I have them create a top 10 list. What are they into? Right? If your wife if you and your wife are having marital troubles, write down a top 10 list of the things that she's into that you're not, have nothing to do with you. Doesn't matter what it is, business, accounting, gardening. It doesn't matter. Whatever she's into, there's articles, there's memes, there's all kinds of stuff about that. And it's better if you're not part of it, right? Like one of my guys said, well, she and I love to go camping together. And I said, that's wonderful, but that's not a good reconnecting text, because that'll feel manipulative, like you're trying to get her to think of better times. Don't do
Mhm.
that. There's plenty of stuff out there you can text. And then I would highly recommend that you do reconnecting every single day, just not to your wife. Monday, you do one to her. Next day, you do one to your kids. Next day, you do one to a coworker or your boss or an employee. It's just being kind. It's an act
Mhm.
of kindness. And if you do it every day, you get so good at it, you can do it in less than 5 minutes. And I promise it'll make their day.
Mm. I'm glad you said that the last part there. I know we talked about it briefly, but I had some friends over this weekend and from out of town, but they were kind of like, yeah, and you know who you are if you're listening. Um, they were kind of like our family away from family, right? And I hope that you guys listening are fortunate enough to have another couple or friends that are they're just your chosen family, so to speak. But it's been a long time since we, have seen each other. It's still 8+ hours away, and we'll go on dry spells of even texting each other. But then randomly, every now and then, it'll be either a quick video on something, or it's a hunting thing because we used to hunt together, or my wife will get them, and then it's just in there. And so when they were here, just like every time, it's just kind of boom, right back where we picked pick right back up from where we left off. And and as you're talking through, I'm just thinking, well, we're naturally doing some of that without even knowing what is, but there's a marked difference between our relationship with them and then with some other people that we don't still great relationships, but totally different level. And so I'm really glad that you picked up on that, because if, I talk a lot about having a group of guys around you. And so presumably, if you found some guys that you connected with and you're like, you know what, and it's okay to say, I want to be friends with that person. That doesn't make you weird, whatever label you want to put on it. It's important to have other strong guys around you for a variety of reasons. But if there's probably something that connected you all, this is a great tool to just deploy it. And at the end of the day, if somebody like is totally just not on board with it, then maybe you lucked out. I don't know. It's like, okay, they have some other things they want to work on. But no, I'm really glad you said that, because this is a deposit in the piggy bank, and not with the intention of getting something,
Right.
immediately. It's not transactional. Now, if we're doing
Right.
it with the intent of transaction immediately, that is, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be manipulation.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just as accurately, we already said it's transactional, right? And that's how we live that way, right? If I give my wife flowers, I expect her to thank me for it. If I wash her car, I expect her to thank me for it. It's not an unrealistic expectation, but it's still there. We want to be, in a word, selfless. We want to do it because it's the right thing to do, not to get something back from the other party, right? And once we start down that path, we start doing things because they're the right things to do, miracles can happen. I've seen all kinds of wonderful things. In fact, that's my motto, right? Uh, my motto for all my guys is just do the next right thing for the right reasons with the right heart, and leave the
Mm,
outcome to God. Because
mm,
if it is the next right thing to do, we don't have to worry about the outcome. Will she like it? Will she lighten up on me? Will this help our relationship? You don't have to worry about any of that. If it is the next right thing to do it. And that's all. Don't worry about the outcome at all. And yeah, funny you just brought that up, because the last S in my SOS reconnect is surround yourself with godly guys. It's it's what we will do is lean on each other during this time, right? And in my program, I've got a whole program of guys, a community of men who've already gone through this, junk, and not only came out of it okay, they're thriving because now they're healthy. They worked on their every single aspect, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, all of that. And now they're doing just great. They're thriving. And boy, the most important part is surround yourself with a group of godly men. That's, that have already found healing, came through it. And that's what you want. You want the support and accountability of a group of men that you can trust.
mm. Yeah. I could never harp enough on that. It really, if you don't have it, you may not
Yeah.
know it, but you want it, because on the flip side of that coin is it's going to look very different. I can't talk today. It's going to look very different. It's going to look really different, and
Mhm.
it's very fruitful, and it also will help you grow faster, because if it's the right guy, they're going to encourage you. You can send the wins, send the victories, send the funny jokes, send your fantasy football, you know, smack talk, whatever it is. But if they're not also challenging you when maybe you slip up, or they notice something because they know you, or they
Yeah.
kind of can say, "Hey, man, what's going on?" It then then I think that's one way to kind of gain some of that healthy group. And if you got that and that trust, and I actually wrote something earlier um, today because I was listening to something else, and I hear a lot about like men's support groups, and I think that term has been coined, but it feels like today's quote unquote support groups. For those of you just listening, watching it, I'm doing air quotes. Um, Today's support groups is yesterday's hunting group. It's yesterday's kind of things that men would go and do together to go and collect and hunt. You would you would fight together, you'd strategize together, you would get victory together, you'd provide together. But then in that time, you're also around a campfire talking about all the
Mhm.
things, and just in a natural way. And it's not like, hey, I'm sitting in this circle to talk about these. It's
Right.
organic. And so when we can have relationships and it's organic, that's when it really is. This isn't a diss on any support groups or anything. Um, it's more of the idea of when you have some really good people around you, we're going to naturally support each other. I just think the label or the moniker of support group sometimes gets just a different perception about what it is when really it's a
Oh,
group
yeah.
of like-minded individuals similar to you that are driving towards a similar goal that you can trust and they can trust you in the good and the bad and then make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. 15 years ago when it was suggested to me to go to a support group. I thought like everybody else does, right? What we see on TV, a bunch of dudes in some basement hanging out in a circle and kind of, oh man, this is going to be awkward. This
That's
is
the
going to
talking
suck.
stick. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's the talking stick. Yeah. No, no, that's not what it is. It's a bunch of real guys. I mean, basically exactly what we're doing right now, right? In my main program, I've got 4 Zoom meetings a week because when you're going through a separation and impending divorce, you need support, you need answers, you need help like right now. And so they don't have to come to all 4 of them, but it's available for them when they want questions answered and to run stuff by guys that have already gone through it. And I know the world teaches us that you should be a lone wolf. You got to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That's a load of crap. The world says that if
Yeah.
we reach out for help in this area, relationships, then we're weak. And that's just wrong. It's just wrong. You're not weak, you're wise. If you
Mhm.
needed help with your golf game, you'd talk to a golf pro. You need help in business, you'd talk to a consultant or somebody, right? You'd get help. But for some reason, when it has to do with relationships, especially our marriage, I'm not talking to any weirdo. I'm not talking to anybody else. I know what I'm doing. Oh, how's that working for you? Sorry, I
Right.
did the same. I've made all the mistakes. That's what makes me an expert because I've made all the mistakes and learn from them. And I can pass it on and say, okay, here's what I've seen. I don't really tell guys what to do. I can simply say, after 15 years, which is about 1,500 guys, here's what I've seen that works. Here's what I've seen that
Yeah.
doesn't work. You can do whatever you want, but a couple of things that I want to pass on before we wrap up here. There's a couple of things that it won't matter where you are in a relationship. Okay. Thing number one, it's not our job to make our wives happy. And that goes against what we're taught, right? The world says, happy wife, happy life. It's my job to make her happy. No, no, it is our job to love her correctly, right? Even in the Bible, it doesn't say husbands, make your wives happy. It says husbands, love your wives. That's what it says. Okay. So it's not our job to make her happy. She'll choose what she wants to be happy with and what she doesn't want to. But it is our job to love them correctly. Here's one way to do that. It's this phrase is what you want to adopt. As a matter of fact, if you had a giant poster, put it up on your wall because this will work. It goes like this: if it's important to you, it's important to me. The moment that you live that way, and she believes it and she can feel it, she's not going anywhere. Why would she? Right? If it's important to you, it's
Mhm.
important to me. Now, if mine is faith based, right? If you're Christian, then it has 2 meanings. If it's important to God, it's important to you. If it's important to your wife, it's important to you. But even if you're not Christian faith, even if you just want to have improved your marriage, I promise you that will be a huge step in the right direction. Take that mindset, right? If it's important to you, it's important to me. If you start talking about something, lean in, give her your full attention. Don't just be half attention, half on your phone. Okay. That's headed downward. You don't want to do that. Give her your full undivided attention so she feels it. If she runs something by you, don't blow it off. Again, I'm talking
Mhm.
to me, 15 years ago. Don't just think, yeah, I'll get to that someday. No, no, no. Do it right now. You don't, by the way, gentlemen, don't base your behavior on her behavior. Just do the next right thing for the right
Mhm.
reasons with the right heart. Leave the outcome to God. Do it because it's the right thing to do, right? Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. I'm supposed to be kind to her, even if she's not kind to me. Yeah. Yeah. Because we're called to be
Mhm.
kind. It's who I choose to be. I don't want to be that old guy, Randy 1.0. I don't want to do that anymore. It didn't work
Right.
for me, right? What's working for me is being less selfish, less of a workaholic, less of a control freak. Okay, I don't want to be that guy. I get to choose who I want to be. I
Mhm.
want to be helpful. I want to be supportive. I want to be encouraging. That's who I choose to be. Well, there you go.
Love it. Yeah, it's a really good topic, and it goes so fast. And so I'm glad we started early so we could touch on more of that. There's a lot about you that we didn't necessarily get to, a lot about your background and stories that you've got. So I know there's some people that would want to learn more, and even about what you're offering, because you work with a
Sure.
lot of men. And so for those of you um, that don't have a church, maybe you don't even, not a believer, whatever your status is. Hey, if you got a place that you want to go and you don't, you're sitting here saying, I'm not sure where to even start. I don't want it, but like, I don't really even know where to go. Well, here's a resource and a place to go and at least learn and start that path. For those of you that do go to church, I know there's a lot of churches that don't necessarily have programs specifically for men. Why? That's a whole different discussion and don't really have the great
Right.
answer for it. I can tell you that one of the coolest things that I've been a part of in some time, and I've gone to a number of churches in different places I've lived, is that we have a Friday morning men's study only. And so it's a bunch of tables and, you know, guys are showing up. And there's like 200 every Friday, and it's growing and growing. And I talked to a lot of people that, they're kind of looking for where to even initiate getting that. So, Randy, where can people find you to learn more about what you've got going on, learn more from you, and just follow you in general?
So, yeah. RandyPryor.com, my website, RandyPryor.com. And you can pick up my book. It's a whole $4.99. And it'll really spell out. It even has a link in the back in the index of where you can find a good church if you're looking for one. But honestly, it's written for anyone who wants to improve their marriage, anyone at all. And I talk about obviously similar things to what I mentioned here. But randypryor.com is the place to start. It'll have answers there. You can buy the book. You can click on the archive tab. And if you click on that, you'll see my old website because like I said, I was a comedy magician and juggler. And just to have it there, you can see what I used to do, what I used to look like. It's all there.
Perfect. I don't think I
Yeah.
saw the archive link, so I'm going to go straight back. Maybe that'll be the cover of the podcast episode.
Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said,
Yeah.
"Yeah." Uh,
Sure.
well, Randy, I appreciate you joining me on the podcast. I enjoyed our conversation prior to. I enjoyed our problem solving skill set at the beginning of this, where we could mime to each other for a few moments.
Yeah.
Um,
It's fun.
but for this conversation, such a great conversation that also delivers tactical, practical takeaways. Sometimes we can get caught on a big idea, and every now and then you look back, you're like, well, okay, so what exactly do I need to go do? Hey, cut and dry. Here's some tactics, guys, that we can go deploy right away. So I appreciate your insight from what you've learned, and how you're using that to help other guys move forward, and also how you're moving forward because of it. Because I know firsthand that conversations like this with other men are really fulfilling, and I've learned so much. So I can imagine, we're in a similar boat that way too. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yes,
And if I may, I'll leave you with one little thought.
yes, sir.
This is bigger than your marriage. This is much bigger than your relationship, much bigger. If you've got kids, this is legacy stuff because where are the kids going to learn it? Where do kids learn how to apologize if the parents never apologize to each other or to them? Okay. So it's learn this stuff now. They're not going to learn it in school. Your kids are not going to learn this stuff in school. So yeah, it's much more important. And when they grow up and get married, they're going to pass it on to their kids. So it's a much bigger deal than just getting through this latest argument.
That might be the title of
Leave
the
you with that.
episode. This is legacy
There you go.
stuff. It
Great.
is. Well, Randy, I
Yeah,
appreciate it, sir. I look forward to staying in contact with you.
absolutely.
And it was a lot of fun. And just again, thank you for being on here and thank you for what you're doing.
My pleasure. Thank you, Zach.
Well, guys and gals, you made this far. I know that you've got some great takeaways. I've got a whole sheet of notes, whatever you want to call this version of a digital sheet. But with the skilled dad, and I've had a lot of people over the years, but really the last several months, um, it- skilled dad. Like I love skilled dad. It's skilled, it's open enough that people will create their own version of what that is, which I love because it tells me pretty quickly what they see as skilled, like what goes first and foremost to their mind. But like Randy was saying, the topics we hit on here, whether you're married, well, okay, let me start at the beginning. Whether you're dating because you're not a dad yet, but you found this podcast, because I know there's a few of you listening, and special kudos to you because you're like equipping yourself before you even get there. So, I'm gonna take my hat off for you. Um, whether you're married, whether you're in separation or even in the divorce side of it, right? Um, business, friends, whatever. The reconnecting part especially, I love it, but it's an investment. It's an investment of your time. You're not looking for an immediate transaction. And through that investment, you do get return. But if you're looking to day trade, it's not going to get you the results that you're wanting because you're going in with a different heart. But if you go in with the heart of investment and taking away a lot of these skills, I'm going to go break down, but even breaking down the SOS that Randy laid out, right? Um, Stop pushing her away. I think that could apply to a lot of us, or maybe just I have a friend or me, right? The open communication and then surrounding yourself with great people. There's lots of different ways to do that. And I'll tell you, if it seems like too big of a hill to climb right now, just do one step at a time, just one step at a time, because you're going to eventually get over that hill. And then you're going to look back and like, holy crap, I was a totally different person then. And here's what I've learned. And then the last thing, if you've already learned some of these things, share it with somebody else that may not have. Go use it and spread it, because the legacy stuff that Randy talked about is what has the ripple effects that eventually have some of the fruit that grows in kind of a world that could use a little fruit right now. And so I'm pretty excited about taking these things and applying them. I've already applied some of them since I had a sneak peek. But the most important thing is that you can take this knowledge and then apply it and use it into action and then repeat, because we're going to be rusty at first. And that's where your skill comes into place. But I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to this podcast. I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe to it. And here's why. I'm not a smash that button kind of guy, but there is such thing as an algorithm, and more people hear about it. And when we have more people hear about it, it helps more people. And so I can't necessarily do that by myself. I know some of you are sharing it, but I ask you to share it and also review it. If you've gotten this far, hopefully you like it because you listened to about an hour worth of it. But I would appreciate that. So I'm going to ask you for that. And then finally, I just hope that you take these things, listen to Randy's episode again, if you need to, listen to previous episodes, and then apply it on your life and your journey to becoming the skilled dad.